I mean, what would older men who seem to have all the privilege in the world be if they weren't crapping on young people in America, right?
Bill Maher had Billy D. Williams of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi fame on his Club Random podcast, and they brought up the topic of young people who they said were raised wrong and misinformed. Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur reacted to all of that. Let's hear what they had to say.
I mean, we're talking about this generation. I don't know what this generation is all about.
I don't either.
It's a whole new thing.
Well, they're fragile. They're hothouse plants.
Well, what about misinformed?
They were raised wrong.
What about misinformed? What about not having...
Some of it is not their fault, of course.
What about not having a sense of history?
Right. No, absolutely. You're so right. They do not know anything.
I mean, what would older men who seem to have all the privilege in the world be if they weren't crapping on young people in America, right? So Bill Maher was recently having a discussion with actor Billy D. Williams on his podcast. If you're unfamiliar with Williams, he's a Star Wars actor. And Maher decided to call young people houseplants. Hey, don't laugh at me, okay? I totally knew that, and I didn't have to look it up or be informed about Williams and what he started.
No, she didn't.
No, totally new. Yeah. Anyway, so they're having a conversation about what seems like increasingly strained relationships between Black and Jewish Americans. And that led to a discussion about how young people are supposedly misinformed, but pay close attention to the examples he uses to make his argument. Take a look.
They do not know anything, but it's not their fault because it's not the responsibility of the child to instruct themselves. I never had to worry about that. Kids today know nothing. They know you don't have to know anything, and they will sign that diploma and kick you out the door if you even finish it. It's criminal, yes, they don't know anything, but it doesn't sap their confidence in still opining on everything as if they did know something.
So he says young people know nothing. They can get a diploma for just showing up. Wait, the part about the diploma is unfortunately a little bit true.
It is, yeah, I agree with you on that.
And so that's the part I agree with, and that's not because young people suck. It's because we devastated funding for public schools.
No, I disagree. I think what he's referring to colleges, right?
I thought he was referring to high schools, but even if he's referring to colleges, that's a little bit more of a mixed bag. I mean, it's not like people that go to these elite colleges know nothing, but are they, on average, way more left wing? Yes, that's true. And that's a third issue. That's a different issue, not knowing nothing.
Well, look, what I took that comment to mean is that honestly, grade inflation is a real thing, and it is a real thing.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, so
that's right.
There is truth to people who aren't really prepared to go through their education, essentially passing because their teachers will pass them and they get through it without having the skills necessary to enter the job market and perform well.
Yeah, and there's two different kinds of grade inflation at public schools and in private schools. At public schools, there's grade inflation like let them pass.
Yeah.
Just go, give them a C, let's get them out of here, right? And then people will come out not knowing how to read or write sometimes, and it's heartbreaking, right? In private schools, just give them an A because the parents complain too much. Okay, that's a different grade inflation. So those things are true, but then he conflates it with young people know nothing.
One thing that I would say about this is I don't know anything about what Bill Maher was like as a student in terms of the grades that he made, but he has admitted that he sold drugs in college. And that was kind of how he got through school. So I don't know if he should be throwing too many stones at young people based on what he was doing while he was a young person, Bill Maher that is, in college.
Because Bill Maher, he's a complicated dude. He's right about some things, and he's a total zealot on other things. Do young people know more or less? Now, there's no meta study on that, and I can't tell you a scientific answer to it, but in my experience, based on what I've seen, on average, they know a lot more. And why? Because on TV, you get nothing but pulp. You get super generalized conversations, and it's all theater and nonsense about, oh, Lindsey Graham thinks this, and Senator Coons on the Democratic side thinks that. That's garbage.
This is a great point that Cenk Uygur makes here. Young kids now are not watching the 24-hour news networks, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, like old people are. So they're not getting the propaganda of those networks. And older people want to make fun of it or think it's stupid or whatever, but they're getting information online, in some cases TikTok. And, there's lots of fluff on TikTok, just as there is on television. But people can get real news and real information there that they're not talking about on the 24-hour news networks. And Bill Maher wouldn't know anything about that. So, like Cenk Uygur is pointing out here, younger people compared to previous generations, they can get real information if they want to online, which would be something that Bill Maher's generation, they would have had to have gone to the library or something. So just because young people are not taking in the same propaganda that Bill Maher is, that they're getting their news and their information elsewhere, doesn't mean that they're misinformed or stupid.
In reality, young people know what old people don't know, because they don't watch TV. They know that it's all the campaign contributions, and they can show you what the money that Raytheon spends, Big Pharma spends, etc. They're much more savvy about what's actually happening in politics, as opposed to the buffoons on television that are still talking as if there's real debates in America.
He also went from criticizing the notion of Biden running for re-election to fully supporting Biden and telling anyone who criticizes his economy or how things are going in America to basically kick rocks. He said, quote, "Stop acting like life in America in 2024 is unbearable. Biden's ratings are in the toilet, not because he's doing such a bad job, but because a lot of Americans like to live with their head in the toilet." I mean, completely ignoring that inflation continues to be a problem, especially when it comes to the price of food. A lot of Americans are struggling with that. You still have a huge percentage of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, unable to afford a $400 emergency. You also have the issue of the migrant crisis impacting a lot of these Democratic strongholds, these big cities like Chicago, Denver, New York City. I mean, he can go ahead and live the kind of lifestyle that's completely detached from that reality because of his wealth. But to sit there and to tell Americans to just shut up, kick rocks, and support Biden is laughable to say the least. And finally, if we're gonna have a discussion about delicate people, okay, fragile people, about the houseplants, let's talk a little bit about Bill Maher and his ridiculously hurt feelings over not getting invited to a ridiculous party. Sources say the host of HBO's Real Time fired CAA, that's a agency, his reps for more than 2 decades after he was not invited to CEO Brian Lord's private Oscar party at his home. Maher, according to sources, was furious that he was snubbed for the event.
So I see that he's got real world problems. Right. So my bad, I gotta withdraw my criticism. No, brother, your head is buried in a pile of cash. And so you can't see straight. So you say absurd things like this. Look, the status, Biden, in his mind, improved the status quo by a little bit. And he's thinking, I don't understand why you guys are upset. He doesn't think this consciously, he thinks it subconsciously. He's thinking, I was already mega rich, and then Biden made my life a tiny bit better. So I love Biden. But brother, if you weren't already mega rich, Biden didn't help you that much.
And also, great point by Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian here. Bill Maher is a multi-millionaire. So of course he's going to think everything's fine with the economy. Everybody around Bill Maher has tons of money. All of his friends that he's interviewing on his podcast and all of that, and talking to on Bill Maher's Real Time show, they're all super rich and they're not dealing with the problems that regular people, particularly young people, who can't afford to buy a home and are working paycheck to paycheck and all of this. Bill Maher can't relate to that anymore. It's been 30 years probably since Bill Maher was in a situation that he really had to think about how he was going to pay his rent or pay for groceries or anything like that. So for Bill Maher to just tell young people to shut up and not complain is ridiculous.
We needed a giant change in the status quo,
right?
Because most like 40% of Americans get knocked out by a $400 bill and can't recover and are risking bankruptcy. You think that Biden helped them a lot?
Yeah.
No, he didn't move the needle at all on that. But you can't see straight because everyone you know is multimillionaires, and you guys are like, everything's great, right? Everything's great. Oh, these ungrateful masses! How dare they complain about Biden? That's rich, if you will.
And honestly, I feel like the person here who has the hurt feelings is Bill Maher, who can't stand the fact that there are young people who disagree with him.
So what do you think? Who's right here on the idea that young people are lazy and misinformed and they weren't raised right and they don't know anything? Do you agree with Bill Maher here? That, all of these things that he believes about young people? Or do you think that the points that Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian made were correct here, that Bill Maher is just an entitled rich person? Make sure to like and subscribe. That helps me to grow the channel and bring out more comments and create more content like this. Make sure to give me a comment and let me know what you're thinking, and I will see you in the next video.